Good evening, and here are today's Tropics for September 19th, 2019. Just as a note, I'm not a meteorologist, and this video is just a collection of my thoughts and opinions about the storms I'm talking about, and for any decision making, please consult the National Hurricane Center, your local officials, or your National Weather Service office. So today we have, first up, at least, is Imelda here that seems to have dissipated for the latest advisory. So, as you know, or might have known, there's been extremely heavy rain in around the Beaumont area. So that'd be around here-ish. So until just earlier today, there was an extremely intense band with continuously firing convection in the same area. So you had training rain, which dumped like upwards of 40 inches of rain in spots. So this was caused by some low-level flow, or southerly flow from the Gulf, meeting up with northerly flow brought on by the low pressure here, which is the low that came inland a few days ago. So you have this convergence zone, right? That was right around this area. And that meant that the air was here, piling up in this area, and so it had nowhere to go but up. And with very unstable air and very moist air, that allowed strong thunderstorms to continuously fire and dump massive amounts of rain over this area. So you can see since the low moved a bit more than north, and it will continue to do so, so kind of move in this direction on the west side of a ridge to the east. So you can see the flow has gone more southerly around the low in this area, so you have less convergence, so the thunderstorms aren't really being supported as much in this area, which is good because the rain is starting to lessen, which these areas desperately need after the flooding from this extremely intense rain. As you can see, this part of the bend is sinking about south. That meant there's some very heavy rain in the Houston area, and there's also flooding brought on by that. And you can see there's some of the that convergence over here, and you see as you go west, it's more and more unfavorable for that convective development. So we're not seeing a lot of that type of convection rain there like we did further east. So there obviously is some rain that's coming, especially in these areas south of this band, but it seems that in the worst hit areas, the worst is over, but there is still a possibility of some more precipitation, but maybe not as significant amounts. So if you're over in that area, just be vigilant about that, and I hope everybody stays safe, because this is a very dangerous situation occurring. It's a flash flood emergency. Looking next to Hurricane Jerry, it's strengthened quite a bit today. The reconnaissance went in earlier today and found that was a hurricane strength, despite a mildly disheveled look. As you can see, this was what it was kind of looking like then, but then recently the convection is really axis symmetrized, so it's forming like around this low, so it's rotating around the low-level center, which seems to have coupled with the mid-level center, so this is allowing the tropical cyclone to intensify now. And it's kind of pushed away this shear that's starting to come in from the west. You can see some of the cloud tops are getting sheared, and that has started to kind of push on the circulation. But since you do see this convection rotating up shear, that is like rotating into the shear, that means the core is still well insulated from that right now, and it can strengthen, and that also means that the dry air can't quite, that's to the northwest, can't quite get in. So if you look at the water vapor here, you can see there's that area of dry air to the west of Jerry. So, and this upper trough type feature right here, which is currently like really shearing out this outflow and helped until recently ventilate Jerry. That's a bit of a shearing influence now. So as soon as the convection can't really rotate up shear, then you're going to see a much less organized system. Obviously, then the eye wall is much weaker then the northern part can't rotate, and then at that time you'll likely see some dry air advection. So once that happens, or even if it does, it should, but nothing's a guarantee. Then once that happens, you'll see some dry air infiltrating the system, which will also hurt it some. And then you can see here there's that northerly flow. If Jerry manages to be much stronger or doesn't get weakened as much as previously forecast, then it might feel some more of this northerly wind aloft, because the vortex will extend more up into the atmosphere, which means it might get steered a bit more south than it currently forecast, which means it might be a bit longer and travel further west before it does get recurved out by the trough. There are a few of those members of the Euro ensembles that do take it north, or don't take it north, but they're still outliers, so that you shouldn't take those ones for gospel, at least right now. So look at update. So there's a mission flying into Jerry as we speak. You can see the edge of the clouds here. So that's the western edge of the convection. The wind is starting to increase right now. The flight level wind's about 20 knots right now. So it's probably not going to make its pass until after this video is over. So fortunately, we won't be able to see that until after. So still watch the mission afterwards, but it's probably not going to be on here. So they're getting in there, and they will see how strong the system has gotten and how much it's strengthened, because that will give us a good idea of how the steering that might happen, and and how much it could get weakened by this shear. So if you look at this drop zone that was northwest of Jerry, this was dropped a few hours ago. This is about 3.5 hours old, but you can see that there's extremely dry air at least 400 millibars and above. You can see this very large difference between the dew point temperature and the actual temperature. So that you can see that there you've got the relative humidities below 10% in this area, so that's extremely dry air. But it's a lot less dry if you go further up. You've got 500 millibars and below. The relative humidity is at about 65% or above. So while this is still going to be unfavorable, especially if it does entrain into the circulation, it's a bit more favorable because you're not getting as much potential for thunderstorms to collapse and bring this dry air further down into the column, which would not allow for convection to form, and then that allows for more dry air to get in, and it weakens the system. So that can happen, but since it's further up, it doesn't quite happen as much, and convection is supported a bit more. If we look at the cone here, it's likely that the northeastern tellies here aren't going to be hit by the main core, which is good. But given that it is making a close-ish pass, you might see some outer bands come here and bring heavy rain and possible tropical storm force wind at times. But again, you're not going to get the core most likely, even if it ends up trending stronger, as it will end up at worst scraping nearby. So see here that it's relatively high confidence that we will see this curve up as the trough comes in and turns Jerry more to the north. Again, there are a few Euro ensemble members that just don't take it north and keep it heading into the coast around like some of the southeast coast. But these are outliers, and you shouldn't really take them seriously at least this point. If we see a lot of disorganization from the shear tomorrow, then you can pretty much throw them out. But right now they're outliers, and it's pretty high confidence that we will see a curve out to sea, except for Bermuda, which was actually just hit by Humberto yesterday. Unfortunately, they might be under the gun again, which isn't really a great situation. There's been a lot of power outages, and they don't really need another hurricane striking them. But as you can see, it's 5 days out, so this is like there's a 2 in 3 chance that Jerry will be in this area in 5 days. So there's a good chance that it also misses Bermuda. So hopefully they don't see direct impacts like they did yesterday with Humberto. And speaking of Humberto, here it is on the water vapor. As you can see, it's obviously not tropical really anymore. This convection has been sheared off to the north, as you got that extremely strong burst of southwesterlies aloft. So it's pretty much made its extratropical transition. You can see this this baroclinic leaf in the jet to the north. You can see this dry air really getting into the circulation. So that caused another sting jet type feature like we saw with Dorian a few weeks ago. There's the resolution's a bit lower in like my ASCAT graphics, but you can see still there's like 65, 70 knot wind barbs on here, so this is extremely strong. There's indications that a sting jet did form in this area due to looking at the satellite images. There was that drier air which tends to descend and bring those mid-tropospheric wind down to the surface. So yeah, this is extremely intense for an extratropical system that's just come from a hurricane. There's just like a lot of that 50 knot wind here, like in this general area. There are some gaps, but in this general area there's widespread 50 knot winds. You can see Bermuda here was scraped by Humberto and got some of these high winds, which could have been partially brought on by that sting jet that was developing then, because yesterday evening it was transitioning into an extratropical cyclone, and it's pretty much finished that now. As you can see, it's expected to be extratropical. It's still a hurricane per the 5 p.m. advisory, but probably won't be at the 11 p.m. advisory. It's expected to not actually hit land. It's expected to mostly turn east and speed off to sea. However, given it's an extratropical cyclone now, it's got a huge wind field. This is like the tropical storm force wind, so it's got a huge wind field, and it makes its closest pass to Newfoundland, right, like in the cone here. Given that there's a large wind field, it's pretty likely that at least some parts, especially the southeast part of the island, are going to see strong winds, and possibly some things like rain as well. So be prepared for some high wind here, but it should move to the south and be weakening at that time. Elsewhere, you probably won't be seeing direct impacts, but towards the east coast of Nova Scotia or the northeast coast, you might see a lot of swell activity and stuff like rip currents, but you're probably not going to see, especially here, you won't be seeing direct weather impacts. Anyway, that's it for tonight. I turned my microphone up So I hope you can hear me better this time. If you have any feedback about that, the new kind of burgundy color that I'm using right here, I appreciate it, and thanks for watching.